We are anonymous. No faces, no flags, no permission slips. We don't ask for permission to tell the truth. We drag it into the light. And tonight, I'm going to walk you through what's happening in Washington and Minneapolis, where the cover-up is cracking. The receipts are everywhere. And MAGA Mike Johnson is doing what he does best, shutting down the House, so nobody can hold Trump's machine accountable. Here is what just happened. Mike Johnson, the Republican Speaker of the House, has abandoned Washington, D.C. yet again. He has thrown the House of Representatives into recess. He shut down all work this week. And now we could be heading toward another government shutdown, because when Congress stops working, deadlines do not stop moving. This is not some harmless district week. This is the Speaker pulling the plug right when the country is demanding answers, and the timing is not an accident. It follows the killing of Alex Jeffrey Pretty, also referred to in some commentary as Alex Jeffrey Prey, a 37-year-old intensive care nurse who worked for the Veterans Administration. He was shot and killed in Minneapolis during a confrontation involving federal immigration enforcement. Multiple outlets report that video appears to show agents disarming him, pinning him, and then a federal officer shooting him while he was holding a phone and filming, not brandishing a weapon. The Department of Homeland Security narrative has been disputed publicly, and the footage is now central to the outrage because people can see the gap between the official story and what the public believes the video shows. Now listen closely, because this is where the cover-up starts choking on its own lies. After this killing, MAGA Mike Johnson did not meet the moment. He did not stand at the podium and call for oversight. He did not demand hearings. He did not say a word that matched the gravity of a United States citizen dying in broad daylight amid federal operations. Instead, he disappeared, he left Washington, and he shut down the House. Why does that matter? Because the Senate is in session right now, and there is a massive appropriations fight on the table. There is what people are calling a minibus, roughly a $1.2 trillion spending package, and buried in that pile is additional funding for immigration enforcement, including ICE and Border Patrol, bundled together with other spending like defense. And that bundling is the tactic. MAGA. Republicans love to jam everything into one package so they can say, if you oppose this, you oppose everything. They want to force Democrats into a corner, then run campaign ads accusing them of hating the military or sabotaging government funding. But after Minneapolis, Senate Democrats started drawing a line. Chuck Schumer and other Democrats, who had been wavering, signaled they would not go along with more money for the Department of Homeland Security machine if it keeps operating like this, especially while key facts and evidence are contested in public. And here is the procedural trap that makes Mike Johnson's recess so dangerous. The House passed its version of the package at the end of last week. In the telling that is circulating, 7 Democrats joined Republicans to push it forward, which critics call a betrayal because it advances more DHS funding, while Minneapolis is on fire politically and morally. Then the bill goes to the Senate. But a bill has to be identical in both chambers. If the Senate changes one line, it has to go back to the House. That is how the system works. So if the Senate removes DHS money, or adds conditions or changes language, the House has to vote again. But MAGA Mike shut the House down. If the House is not in session, there is no quick reconciliation, no rapid vote, no path to finishing the job. The clock runs out, and the country stumbles toward shutdown. And notice what that also buys Trump. Time, confusion, exhaustion, the perfect fog for a cover-up. Now while Mike Johnson went quiet, other Republicans did something unusual. They started speaking up, because the video and the backlash are too big to ignore. Senator Lisa Murkowski posted that what the country is witnessing is shocking, and she raised serious questions about training instructions and the use of force. The point she made matters. Lawfully carrying a firearm does not justify federal agents killing an American, especially if video appears to show the victim had been disarmed. She demanded an independent investigation and said congressional committees need to hold hearings and do oversight. That is a Republican saying ICE does not have carte blanche. In the same stream of reactions, a Republican congressman is quoted as being disturbed by what he saw in Minnesota and saying Congress and the public need a better understanding of how immigration enforcement is being handled, including methods, training, body cameras, and what officers are doing on the ground. Another Republican senator, Bill Cassidy, said the events are incredibly disturbing and that the credibility of ICE and DHS are at stake, calling for a full federal and state investigation. And Senator Tom Tillis called for a thorough and impartial investigation, transparency, and cooperation, warning against rushing to judgment or trying to shut down an investigation before it begins. And then comes the part they cannot hide. Reports and commentary describe a struggle over the investigation itself. In the narrative spreading through political media, the Department of Homeland Security under Kristi Noem is accused of restricting outside involvement and stonewalling, while state and local officials have pushed for access to evidence and court orders to preserve it. The basic theme is this: the public wants the facts, and the federal apparatus wants control. That tug-of-war is exactly why Congress should be in session, and yet MAGA Mike Johnson shut the House down anyway, even inside the Republican caucus. The panic leaks out. One House Republican, speaking anonymously in Washington political reporting, said many of them wonder whether the administration has any clue how much this will hurt them legislatively and electorally. Think about that for a second. Their first instinct is not a citizen is dead. Their first instinct is this is going to hurt us. That is the moral rot of MAGA politics. It is always about protecting Trump, protecting the brand, protecting the narrative. Now look at conservative media, because when state-aligned media starts asking questions, the propaganda machine is losing its grip. Maria Bartiromo on air pressed a Trump-aligned voice about what the threat actually was. She demanded to know how the handgun was supposedly used to threaten federal agents. She pointed out that he appeared to be filming, and the answer she got was the classic bureaucratic dodge. I will let DHS and prosecutors handle it. I trust the professionals. I trust Secretary Noem. That is not evidence. That is not transparency. That is blind loyalty presented as policy. Then you have James Comer, another MAGA figure, trying to hand Trump an escape hatch. In the telling that has been circulating, Comer suggests Trump should consider pulling federal forces out of Minneapolis, blaming white liberals and claiming they are disrupting operations, essentially saying, maybe leave and let the city miss you. Translation: the optics are catastrophic. Get out before the story cements. And if you want to understand the MAGA playbook, watch how quickly they pivot to blaming the victim. Trump's camp leaned hard into the idea that Alex brought a firearm to a protest, as if that alone erases constitutional rights and justifies lethal force. But multiple reports state he had a lawful permit to carry, and crucially, video appears to show he was disarmed before he was shot. The details matter, because a lawful gun owner filming agents is not the same as someone aiming a weapon at officers. If the footage is what it appears to be, then the official narrative is not just incomplete, it is misleading. Kristi Noem, when asked directly whether he brandished the gun, and when it was retrieved, reportedly leaned into broad claims about assaulting officers and defending lives, and she mocked the idea of a peaceful protester showing up with a gun and ammunition rather than a sign. And that hypocrisy is impossible to miss, because Noem has a long record of performing as a Second Amendment absolutist, praising gun rights as part of heritage, and even talking about resistance to oppression. Yet in the Trump era, the same crowd that screams, "shall not be infringed," suddenly treats constitutional rights as conditional, dependent on whether you support the regime. Now let us connect this back to the headline you came for. MAGA Mike shuts down House after Trump cover-up fails. The cover-up is failing because the video exists, because witnesses exist, because reporting exists, because even some Republicans are demanding investigations, because the story is too visible to bury cleanly. So what do they do when they cannot bury it? They stall it. They delay it. They shut down the place where hearings would happen. They try to run out the clock. And while they do that, they also threaten to crash the government into a shutdown. That is not leadership. That is hostage-taking. There is also an ugly pattern here. Critics point to how MAGA Mike Johnson has used recesses and shutdown games before to avoid politically dangerous votes, including votes tied to transparency around high-profile files and scandals. Whether it is budget deadlines or oversight demands, the behavior is the same. When accountability approaches, they scatter. When the truth gets too close to Trump, the doors close and the lights go off. And let us be honest about Trump in this. Trump does not just benefit from chaos, he manufactures it. His entire political style is built on flooding the zone, exhausting the public, and daring institutions to keep up. If the House is closed, the Senate is stuck, investigations are contested, and people are arguing about funding packages instead of facts. Trump wins. That is the point. Now, there is one more voice in this story that matters. Congressman Greg Casar has been calling for specific non-negotiables if lawmakers are going to touch DHS funding while Minneapolis is burning. Pull ICE and CBP out of Minneapolis. No more masked operations. No more arresting and deporting United States citizens. A full and thorough investigation of the killings. An end to indiscriminate quotas. Warrantless arrests and searches. Whether you agree with every point or not, the structure is what matters. Conditions, oversight, accountability, rules. Because without rules, you do not have law and order. You have power and permission. And right now, Trump is asking for permission to do whatever he wants, while Mike Johnson makes sure Congress is not around to say no. So here is where we are. The Senate is still working. The House is shut down. If the Senate changes the minibus, it has to go back to the House, and the House is not there. That is how a shutdown becomes likely, and that is how a cover-up gets time to breathe. Now you might be thinking, what can I do? Here is what you do. You do not let them numb you. You do not let them reframe this as a messy news cycle that fades by Friday. You pay attention to the evidence preservation fights. You watch who demands hearings and who disappears. You call out the bundling of DHS money into massive packages designed to bully votes. And you make noise, because silence is the oxygen of abuse. Share this. Talk about it. Demand oversight. Demand transparency. Demand that Congress do its job instead of running away from it. And if you are watching this on a platform where subscriptions and notifications matter, hit subscribe. Turn on notifications, and do not assume you are already locked in, because these stories move fast, and the people in power are counting on you missing the next chapter. We are anonymous. We do not need permission to witness, and we do not need permission to remember. If they want darkness, we bring the light.